I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghosts or demons or anything supernatural. I always believe that people exaggerate things, that strange sounds have logical explanations, that shadows don't move on their own, that fear makes us imagine monsters that aren't there. At least, that's what I believed. Until last winter. And what happened to me? I still can't explain. I still don't understand. But I know it was real. This story happened in December of 2022. I was living alone at the time, working late shifts at a small warehouse in northern Michigan, the kind of place where winter feels like it lasts half the year, where the nights are long and the silence can feel heavier than the snow itself. One night, I clocked out around 12:40 a.m. The roads were empty, snow covered everything, and the temperature was so cold. The air felt solid. I remember walking to my car, hearing the crunch of snow beneath my boots, and noticing something strange. There were footprints leading away from the warehouse door, but not normal footprints. These were spaced too far apart, almost like whoever made them was taking impossibly long steps. I followed them with my eyes, watching the trail stretch across the parking lot, then suddenly stop in the middle of the open space. No car tracks, no second set of prints, just nothing. The prints ended as if the person had simply vanished. I laughed it off, told myself the snow had covered the rest of the trail, but something about those prints bothered me the whole drive home. I live about 15 minutes from the warehouse, and that night, for some reason, the drive felt much longer. The highway was pitch black. My headlights were the only source of light for miles. I remember glancing at my rearview mirror, and for a split second, I thought I saw someone sitting in the back seat. A dark shape, still, silent, but when I looked again, there was nothing. I blamed it on exhaustion, turned up the radio, and kept driving. When I got home, everything felt normal. I kicked off my boots, microwaved leftover pasta, sat on the couch, scrolled on my phone. Same routine as always. But then, around 2:13 a.m., I heard something. A single, solid knock coming from my front door. Not loud, not aggressive, just firm. Knock. I froze. Nobody ever comes to my house that late. I live in a quiet area, surrounded by tall trees. No neighbors close enough to stop by casually. I walked to the window beside the door, lifted the blinds just a little, and peered through. No one was there. Snow covered everything. Untouched, no footprints, nothing. I closed the blinds, telling myself it must have been a branch, or the cold shifting the wood. I went to bed around 3, and that's when things really started. I woke up at 3:41 a.m. because someone was breathing in my room, slow, heavy, wet-sounding breaths coming from the corner near my closet. At first, I thought it was my own breathing echoing in the cold air, but then it exhaled again, and I realized the sound didn't match my own rhythm. I sat up slowly, heart pounding, and looked toward the closet. It was dark, silent, still, but something felt wrong. The air in that corner seemed thicker, darker, like the shadows were pooling there. I reached for the small lamp on my bedside table, turned it on, and the second the light filled the room, the breathing stopped. The corner looked empty, normal, like nothing had ever been there. I didn't sleep again. The next night, I came home around midnight again, and when I walked into the living room, I felt something watching me. I can't explain how I knew, but the second I closed the door, the air felt different, colder, heavier. It felt like someone had been inside, standing perfectly still, waiting for me to return. I checked every room, bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, closets. Everything was locked. Everything looked normal. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Around 1:50 a.m., I heard something new, scraping. Like fingernails, dragging lightly along my hallway wall. Scrap, scrap, slow, steady, moving from one end to the other. I stood there, frozen, listening. The scraping stopped right outside my bedroom door. Then came another sound, a breath, a long, slow exhale. I stepped backward, my body trembling, until I felt the edge of my bed against the back of my legs. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands, opened the camera, turned on the flash, and pointed it at the door. Nothing. Just an empty hallway. I turned off the flash, and sat in bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the door until morning. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. My eyes were bloodshot. My hands were shaking. My brain felt like it was full of fog. I told myself that maybe I was losing it, that maybe the night shift was messing with my sleep. But that night, everything escalated. It was around 12:18 a.m. I had just turned off the TV, planning to force myself to sleep early, when I heard it again. Knock at the front door. One single knock, identical to the night before. I moved slowly to the window, lifted the blinds, and froze. There were footprints in the snow this time, but not leading toward my door. They were leading away from it. A single set of long, stretched-out footprints, heading straight toward the tree line. No prints approaching the house. No sign of anyone walking up to knock. Just prints walking away. Like something unnatural had been inside already, and was now returning to the woods. I backed away from the window. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I thought it was a message from a friend. But the screen showed unknown number. And the message said, "Do you see me yet?" My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I dropped the phone and stumbled backward until my legs hit the couch. The phone buzzed again. Another message. "I followed you home." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't answer. I didn't dare. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped. I saw my breath drifting in front of me. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. The house went silent. Utterly silent. I stood there, in total darkness, unable to move, unable to think, listening for anything. And then I heard a whisper. Not from my phone, not from outside, from directly behind me. "I'm inside." I turned slowly, painfully slowly, too scared to breathe. The darkness behind me was thick, almost shaped, like something standing there. Tall, crooked, leaning forward. My eyes adjusted, just enough to see the outline of something long, impossibly thin, stepping silently across the room. I stumbled backward, hands shaking, scrambling for a light switch. Anything. When the lights flickered back on, nothing was there. The room was empty. But the footprints inside the house, small patches of melted water on the floor, told me something had been standing there, watching me. I didn't sleep that night either. Around 4 a.m., I started hearing noises in the attic. Footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, moving from one side to the other, sometimes stopping right above my bedroom, sometimes tapping on the ceiling, like whatever had followed me home was exploring, trying to learn the shape of the house, finding places to hide. The next morning, I called in sick again. I almost told my boss the truth. But what would I say? There's something in my attic. I think a shadow followed me home from work. No one would believe that. I barely believed it myself. That evening, I decided I'd had enough. I wasn't spending another night inside that house. But when I walked outside toward my car, I froze. There were footprints in the snow, leading from my front door to my car, and then around it, circling it once, twice, then standing at the driver's side door. The snow was disturbed there, like something had stood inches from the glass, staring in. The worst part, there were no footprints leading away. None. Whatever made those prints had vanished again. I ran back inside, locked every door, every window, turned on every light, and sat there shaking, waiting for morning. That night, I refused to sleep. I stayed on the couch with every light in the living room on. Around 3:27 a.m., I heard a sound that I will never forget. A voice, whispering my name from underneath the floorboards. Not loud, not angry, just gentle, like it was trying to coax me. "Let me in," I covered my ears. "Let me in!" The floor beneath me creaked, as if something was pushing upward, pressing against the wood from below. I grabbed my keys, my phone, my coat, and ran out of the house, barefoot, into the snow, into the freezing air, and didn't stop running until I reached the gas station 2 miles away. I called my brother. I stayed with him for 3 weeks. When we finally went back to the house to collect my things, the place felt colder than I remembered. Quiet, still, nothing seemed out of place. But when we walked past the closet, my brother stopped suddenly. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I didn't want to, but I listened. From deep inside the house, behind the walls, between the wooden beams, something breathed, slow, heavy, patient, waiting. I moved out that same day. Left furniture behind, left clothes, left everything I didn't absolutely need. And sometimes, late at night, even now, I wake up suddenly, heart racing, sweat cold on my skin. Because I swear, just for a moment, I hear it again, the slow, steady breathing, not in the attic, not under the floor, but right beside my bed, and every time. My phone buzzes with a message from no number. "Look behind you."